Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the Fans of DC Universe podcast, the only place where members of the DCU can come together to talk about what they are reading, watching, and more. Joining us today are me, Nathan.Payson, Donnell, New 52.
Hello.
Hello.
And today we are covering the triumphant return of Young Justice and the fantastic Southern Gothic that is Swamp Thing, episode 6, as well as talking about the Legion of Superheroes, the Man of Steel miniseries by Bendis, and more. But first, we have some news. The biggest DC news today is that Doom Patrol's People Like Us is on YouTube. Here's a quick clip. I actually have to pull this up. I failed miserably. So you guys recognize this, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, this is the clip from Danny the Street, where Negative Man's coming out. So what did you guys think of the song? That song being Danny the Street, or on Danny the Street?
I love the song because I do like Kelly Clarkson. So when that cover came on, I was in love with it. I actually watch it before going to class on Saturdays because I dread going on Saturdays, but that song gets me like upbeat and ready for the whole day.
Oh, you listen to the song before classes?
Yeah.
That's so great. Do you listen to that version?
Peppy.
Oh, I'm sorry. Both of you were talking at the same time.
Do you listen to that version?
Now I do because I bought it on iTunes when it came out, but at first I was just listening to the version that was on the episode.
That's so awesome. That's a
No,
great
it is
song.
amazing. And it's a good sign, too, I think, of things to come that we might hear announced in a couple of weeks.
Please give us a soundtrack, like a full soundtrack. Don't do this like one song. It's really annoying. But the soundtrack for Doom Patrol and Titans are both so good. But if you can't actually find it on iTunes, because they didn't release it, they just released like the one song. And I've been listening.
Well, the person that worked on the soundtrack did release a few tracks on his website, I believe.
Okay, but that's right. But that's it?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, rest in peace. Also, FYI, DC Universe is at RTX tomorrow with a Young Justice screening. My guess is they're going to show episodes 17, 18, and 19. But that's all their news. Now, let's talk about what we are reading. But before we do, DC Universe added Bane Conquest number 12, Batgirl number 24, Batman Beyond number 21, Batman Prelude to the Wedding, Harley Quinn versus the Joker number 1. That's such a mouthful. Terrible naming skills. Wow. Detective Comics number 983, Flash number 49, Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps number 47, Hellblazer number 23, Injustice 2 Chapter 64, The Man of Steel number 5, Mara Queen of Atlantis number 5, Mother of Panic Gotham AD number 4, Raven the Daughter of Darkness number 6, The Silencer number 6, Teen Titans Special number 1, The Terrifics number 5, Wonder Woman number 49. Man, that's a mouthful. That's a lot. They also newly digitized a bunch of stuff, including Everyone's Loving Ambush Bug from 1985. That is all that that's what they added this week. So what are you guys reading from the list?
Oh, there's actually more that they digitized. There was Orion the Immortal number 3, Batman Family number 10,
Dead Man number 4.
Mm-hmm. Right, so Doom Patrol 4, Hour Man 10, Human Defense Corps number 4, Superman's Girlfriend Lois Lane, which is
that's such a wacky series.
Number 7, but you know me, I love my wacky covers.
And then Two-Face Year 1, yeah. Number 1 and 2 of 2. So they had a lot of good stuff this week.
Well, I'll go ahead and tell you quick what I am enjoying. And again, appreciate all the book clubs in New 52. I just wish I could figure out a way to squeeze in your book clubs there. That the one you're doing right now looks very intriguing. If I can figure it out, I'll join in. But it's kind of nutty out there with all these book clubs and watch alongs, right? But for me, the stuff I'm most looking forward to, I am interested in the Detective Comics 983 because it starts that whole new series of The Outsiders. Flash 49, I'll continue to read that because I didn't originally. Man of Steel 5, following along, Nathan, with your new to DCU book club there. And the Terrifics, I was reading that through those Walmart giant 100-page specials, and I stopped buying them after a bit. And I think this is about where it would pick up where I hadn't read. And again, what I love about Terrifics, it has the ancestor to Phantom Girl of the Legion that we'll talk about later. And again, for the newly digitized stuff from the past, Superman's girlfriend, Lois Lane, there's just so many reasons. History, the comedy of it, of course. And like anything historic, there's also the stuff that you just want to bury your head because it's so embarrassingly, politically incorrect what they're doing on a lot of that. Like Lois all worried about things like kids and all this. That's got to be the only driving. So that's it. I was just, that's what I'm looking for. How about you, New 52? Anything in there you like?
Well, I'm catching up with Batgirl, the Rebirth series. So I'm on 20 right now. So I'm about to be caught up with it. And I'm also reading the Wonder Woman series.
I'm a little behind in the Wonder Woman series and the Batgirl series, actually, but they're both really fun. I'm reading through the Dark Gods right now, which starts with number, I want to say 46. And that's a good jumping on point because it's a direct tie into Dark Knight's Metal. Also, going back to what you were saying about Lois Lane, it's funny talking about Sign of the Times. Lois Lane has lots of weird things like that, but also I was reading the original introduction of Superman, and man, Action Comics #1 is bizarre. Like he's like someone faints and Superman literally says fainted. It's like who writes that? Like that's poor writing, which is really funny. He also
Did
is
you
like
see where we posted the very first thing that writing team wrote a couple of years before that?
I have not.
It's some occult hero, almost like a Hellblazer kind of idea. Somebody that has these mystic powers and he's fighting with these other magicians, and then from there he went to the.
Yeah, it's important to remember that Superman was not the first superhero. He was the first popular one. Right? Like Marvel had already started to dip their toes into the water a little bit. DC had tried a couple times. That was the first one that hit. And so the idea of a hero as a superhero with powers is not new, but Superman's very interesting. And it's weird because it's such a sign of the times, and that Superman's just a bully. I'm watching, and he is threatening to electrocute people. He's carrying people. He's basically he's carrying them above the street, like 50 feet in the air, and he's like terrifying. And he's basically Batman, but with powers. When he first starts out, he's not the positive person. And then Lois Lane's already falling for Superman and #1 and dissing Clark Kent. Fun fact, it was not actually called the Daily Planet Action Comics #1. It's called the Daily Star. That's very weird.
Interesting. As you're saying this, we don't want to go off track here because, we have a nice tight time when I do this. But one thing I need to catch up on and maybe even start some watch-alongs, I'm thinking down the road, the Superman TV show that they have on DCU. That, again, is a little more tame, but it is kind of fun to watch that. And again, it's very historical the way it's embedded in what was going on in the 50s at the time.
You're speaking about the Fletcher cartoons?
No, actually, the series, the Superman TV series, and there was a serial just before that that had the same lady playing Lois Lane in both that and the later very long-term 50s TV show.
Oh, okay.
George Reeves, which is very bizarre to me. George Reeves played Superman, and it was also a Reeves that played Superman in the movies.
Don, you wanted to talk about the Man of Steel mini?
Right. So let me just for a minute talk about that. What's funny there is, again, I did buy most of this a year ago when it came out, but again, I was reading like 15,000 other comics at the time, right? Didn't really think a lot about it at the time, but with the club, we were able to kind of dig in a little. And overall, I'm liking the way it ties in some of the questions that you should ask when you have a fictional world. You want a fictional world to be durable to actually make sense. Like Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, right? He spent a lot of time just building the genealogies and all this to make sure that it was deeply believable. One thing people say all the time is, if there was a Green Lantern Corps, why would they have allowed Krypton to blow up and not save them? That doesn't make sense. Stuff like that. So it's interesting that they show the tie-in with Green Lantern Corps on this. Rogal Zar as somebody that was almost like a military resort for almost like an Illuminati from Marvel, right? That same kind of feel of this group of 6 or 7 that are manipulating things in the background, perhaps with some legal authority with the galaxy. Very interesting. Again, I'm not sure I'm totally buying the Rogal Zar character. The idea of someone having, like I say, this whole idea of genocide, and that somebody from an advanced galactic culture would actually think that it's proper to extinguish an entire civilization because they're concerned what they might do instead of using other means first, right? I've had a lot of problems with that. Almost like the guy, I'm hoping maybe we find out later, Nathan, you read all this, I haven't. Hopefully they'll show that he somehow became mentally ill to do this, because otherwise it's just zero sense. Although again,
that the Rogol Czar's full story gets covered in the pages of Supergirl. So
good.
So then when they reboot Supergirl, soft reboot it with issue number 21, 20 or 21, they will basically, Supergirl gets, spoiler alert, his Rogol Czar's staff thing and his axe, that's what it's called. She'll go on an adventure to try to figure out what's going on with Rogol Czar. So she's going off to figure that out. And it will take about a year to get through the full story, just to give you some perspective. Because
it's going to be interesting. I did pick up, I think, 24, where she's got, I believe is it Crypto she goes on, that she takes the dog?
Yes, she takes Crypto too. Yeah. But what's interesting is so skipping forward a year to the present, in DC Comics, where all the threads are coming back together for year 2. And then that's part of how Legion's kicking off, is it's going to kick off the sort of year 2 of Bendis's run. Or like a more official year 2 is tying in the Legion with Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen. Yeah. And so that's going to be interesting. But we're just starting to now get some of the threads coming back together from Superman, Action Comics, and Supergirl. So that's really fun. But no, so basically at the end of the mini, Superman is fully rebooted, which is going to be your more spacefaring adventure and more Rogol Czar versus Superman, especially to start. And that's going to deal with Phantom Zone and some other craziness. And then Action Comics is going to be closer to line with the Tomasi Superman, in the sense that it's more about the relationship and the more small town. It's more of a Clark Kent story than a Superman story. And then Supergirl is let's do all the backstory that Bendis doesn't actually want to cover. Yay! I'm sorry. I have this weird thing. My biggest hypocritical DC thing is I constantly complain about Bendis' writing, and then I read every single one of his issues. I've read every single Bendis comic at DC that's in the main DCU. So we can talk about this, about how bad his writing is, but I still read it, so it's my fault.
Well, and what I found, and I've read a lot of Bendis stuff, and it's one thing to read it digitally, all you can read for the same price, regardless of how many you read. When you're spending hard cash for a Bendis comic that is basically 16 tiny squares per page of, Power Man and Iron Fist talking back and forth with almost no change in anything in the picture. You're like, that's great. I'm glad that Bendis is showing he knows how to write dialogue. But the story went nowhere for 3 issues, like in New Avengers, that kind of stuff. So he is a very powerful writer on things like a Jessica. Is it Jessica Jones? I'm trying to say Power Man's fiance there.
I think so.
Anyway, yeah, and he's fantastic when he digs in, like you're saying, on the Action Comics street level stuff. He can't be beat. when he starts doing the cosmic stuff and starts having talking heads for 3 issues and nothing happens, you can get a little frustrated. Imagine if Homer did that, when he healed in the Odyssey. That would have been pretty wild. Anyway, so we've got all this going on, and I think that's probably enough on that particular topic. What did you want to talk about next, sir? We talked about the Man of Steel.
What about the Flash War? What's going on with Flash War?
Yeah, I didn't put that down as something to mention, but I mean, I'm certainly reading it, and it's intriguing. It's certainly entertaining. It's fun to see the rogue gallery suddenly the good guys in the far future, which again, you kind of scratch your head how that is or what that's about, but you take it and you run with it. I'm still not totally buying the idea that Reverse Flash or Zoom, whatever we want to call him, is suddenly a good guy because he doesn't have his powers. I'm getting the deep sense he's still very twisted and insane.
Did you get the 49? Did you get the 49?
I haven't read it yet.
Okay. Then I'm not going to spoil it. Okay. Because I think that will answer a lot of your questions.
Fun. Yep. So we'll see how that goes. Before we go a whole lot further, I did want to congratulate you. Now that we're in the new month, New 52. It's obvious that your book club idea for Pride Month was very successful.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, what I tend to look at with the threads for book clubs is how many responses. You'll have a number there, whatever it is. Typical book club, we're lucky to get 15 to 20 responses in a week, right? And as I recall, yours were much bigger. You had a lot of people very enthusiastic from all walks of life, really, digging in. And again, I felt bad. I was like, oh man, I wish I could figure out how to squeeze in time to join in on the fun on it. And
yeah, I really enjoyed that. It was a lot of people. It wasn't just LGBT plus people. It was also a lot of allies, a lot of straight people joining in and just like saying, you know what, thank you for doing this, and like including everybody, and I really enjoyed that aspect of community where I saw a lot of people that normally don't interact in the boards, in the forums, actually come out and give it a shot for once. So that was really cool.
Yeah, well, the stuff you selected too are big favorites like Gotham Central, which isn't written by Bendis, but it very much has the Bendis Street feel. Is just very popular. I spent a lot of money buying all the graphic novels of that because it's just so addictive and such a neat, different view of Batman's world.
Yeah, it was so interesting because we get to see a world that we see a lot of in a way that we don't see a lot of. You know what I mean?
Oh no, exactly. Especially with Mr. Freeze at the beginning, where he's so sadistic with that one cop, where he freezes his arm drops off. It's like, wow, this is one evil dude.
And he not only is sadistic to the one that he actually takes out, but he leaves one to witness it. That's horrible.
Yeah, they're just a sick, twisted dude. And, I guess I should have said this before with the genocide thing. Nathan, I hate the fact that one villain did that. But look at our history, even in the past 30 years, Rwanda, places like that, where there has been hundreds of thousands of people wiped out in the name of vengeance or Lord knows what. It's terrible that seemingly rational people do this kind. And this guy Freeze doing this stuff again. We see this in the news. These horrible, recently terrible stories, and it just makes you wonder. We're sitting here reading this wonderful literature that's so inspiring, right? Very moral and right must win, that kind of stuff. And we're surrounded by that odd mix in our world, aren't we? Of people striving for that, and then this underbelly of humanity.
Yeah, 6 million people died in the Holocaust. Just think about that. It's so horrible. And
it couldn't have been done just by insane people. That's what's scary with that particular. We don't want to, of course, that could be a whole other podcast, obviously. But I think about that once in a while as well. And it's like, yeah, I get it. There was a couple sick people at the top that probably should have just been shot on sight, never allowed to even function. But all those tens of thousands of people running those camps that would just go home at night to their families, they weren't insane. They were just what? Why would they even be doing it?
And I'm sorry to go back to the Man of Steel discussion, But I was thinking about it. Like, I think part of why Supergirl goes out on her journey is because Superman, he's like, and Supergirl, like, our entire home was destroyed by this man. If what he's saying is true, it's kind of hard to believe. And I think Supergirl and Superman are a little bit doubting and are like, is this true? Is he just trying to piss us off? Because I think it's hard to believe that sort of stuff. And so,
Well, especially when Jor-El kept saying that he was predicting it. So if Jor-El was predicting it, how did this guy make it happen?
And now Jor-El's gonna take John away. Yeah, no comment on that.
Well, it's too funny what happens later. I do have Superman #7 or whatever it is, where he comes back, like, your favorite, where he's like 16 or whatever.
He's 17. He's like the same age as me. It's bizarre.
Well, the good news is he'll be in Legion, so maybe you guys can join my Legion club so you can read all about the Legion with him.
I will definitely join that. He's like favorite. Well, we don't know he's coming to Legion yet. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. For all we know, Superman goes to the Legion, and John is forced to stay here. That would especially make.
And he's the new
We
Superman.
don't know.
It's the younger one, kind of like what they did with Iron Man in the '90s, where he was suddenly a teenager. By the way, New 52, it's going to be interesting, don't you think, with this new Legion that's coming out in September, October. Maybe they'll be just like the Legion that you love that's in the animated series.
Yeah, I really love the animated version. I'm trying to get into the one in the comics that you've been reading with your book club. I just need to make time for it.
Well, and there's so much to it. Like when I first did that whole thing about, petition for the Legion. If I were to go back and write down all the names of the people that said they love Legion, right? I think it's like 30, 40 people that raised their hands. They're not in the club right now, for sure. And one of the reasons is because it's so complex. There's at least 6 different legions. As you go across from the late 50s to now, there's the one we'd like to think of, which would be the one you love on the animated series, right? The core group. Very simple. You don't see an army on that show yet, at least not that I've seen, right? We only got 5 or 6 people there in the Legion, not 40, like what Bendis is. But yeah, there's just all this. There was somebody that I haven't answered the post yet on DCU Community. He's like, hey, this Dan Abnett version that was around 2000, where should I start? Is it any good? And I'm holding back on saying anything to the guy, but that's one of the many versions where the Legion suddenly looks like all of them are dwarfs, about 4.5 foot tall, and strangely drawn. And they're all supposed to be about 15 years old. And that's a version, and that's kind of close to the animated version, frankly, right? They're all pretty young in there, which is fun. And that's what it was in the original, the 1958 one, remember? Where it's like they had like a high school initiation of Superboy. So we'll see. I don't want to go on too much. That really segues into that other topic. Nathan, is it time to talk about Legion yet?
Yeah, go ahead.
All righty, buddy. I don't want to, push it too much. I do want to mention there is the watch along Wednesday night on the 10th, where we're going to watch episodes 5 and 6. Should be fun. And then
of what?
There's also
5 and 6 of the animated the
animated
Legion
series.
superhero animated series.
So we watch 2 a month. So I have enough for 2 years, because at one time I foolishly thought I could do this Legion book club in 2 years. Now I realize it's more like 6. That's all right. And then right now we're in week 11 of the book club. Started July 3rd, goes through next Tuesday, which has it says Superboy. It's Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes from the very early 1970s. But what's fun with it is it contains the wedding of Bouncing Boy and Duo Damsel. I mean, just saying that in public. Number 200, it's only in black and white, but it's this cute story of why they get married and what does that even mean? I mean, it's very fascinating. There's a couple different weddings I want to make sure to cover fairly soon, because it has a lot to do with, again, what the Legion is. The animated, again, nobody's married, and it'll be interesting again to see, is Bendis going to have people still married, because that was kind of a big thing right later on with Lightning Lad and Saturn Girl, I believe it is. And then you got Bouncing Boy and Duo Damsel. By the way, they have real names.
uh, what do you think? What do you think of what Benz is doing with Millennium, where he's trying to combine all the future timelines into one timeline?
Well, why not? Let's see how that looks. Of course, we have to see what happens with the end of Doomsday Clock, right? And see, because obviously, like issue 9 shows this horrible picture of a Legion ring with blood, and there's nobody there. So who knows how that's all going to tie in? It's just fascinating how they're deliberately hinting for years now. Do you know the last Legion of Superheroes comic book was published in 2013? It's been over 6 years now since there's been a Legion comic book. That's a long time for something that's run so consistently from 1958 on, basically nonstop. And now it's just been gone for 6 years.
I haven't seen the DC community this excited since I started following it. Like everyone was so excited to see the Legion returning. Like my mind was blown. But
the drawings are so cool of the reimagination of it.
So just so you know, what they're doing with Doomsday Clock is they're going to have number 11, and that's going to kick off Millennium. So it's not the end of Doomsday. Number 11 is going to kick off Millennium, just to give some perspective.
Wow.
Because Doomsday Clock looks like it's going to be finishing in December. I'm sorry to everyone. I'm sorry. I want to see this thing be over with so I can buy it by trade. Because I've read the first issue.
Imagine if they did this, a Crisis on Infinite Earths back in 1986. I mean, can you imagine they stretched it out over 4 years? It would have been horrible. It's like, yeah, we really need to reboot the DC universe 4 years later. How's that coming? Or we did 3 other reboots in the background while we were doing this one. Which is what they've done. They had the Rebirth and all this other stuff at the same time.
Well, yeah, Doomsday started with Rebirth, and we're now on Rebirth year. We're on Rebirth year 4 now. It's kind of like we're beginning year 4 of Rebirth. Like it's
again.
Oh my god,
this makes no sense. It makes no. I mean, I get it. Jeff Johns is busy doing things like the Titans and all that for TV.
Well, it's also that they want to make sure it has the quality of Watchmen. That they want to make sure that 10 years from now, we're still reading it, right? And considering it one of the best DCU comics, the most important ones. And I think they're achieving that, especially after all the discussion about number 10. But will it stay that way? I don't know.
Crazy stuff. And to finish up on the Legion then, the extra credit, which there was this weird 4-issue Legion of Superheroes comic book before they had it tie in with Superboy. Number 2 from 1973. It's this bizarre story where the Legion goes back and participates in some war on ancient Krypton.
Wow.
Which ties in with the other thing I'll mention briefly, which I also put on the itinerary for tonight. We're doing the Krypton season 2 watch along.
Krypton.
Yeah, number 4 that you've already seen, that I haven't, that I've recorded on my cable box. And it's so funny. All these, here's a big secret, and I have a feeling that JL will be listening, but I only was planning to do this one time. This is before DC Universe decided to have episode 1 of season 2 on. I thought, wouldn't it be fun to have a watch along of the first episode of season 2, right? Wouldn't that be cool? Because I've already got plenty of other stuff going on in the universe without this. Well, wouldn't you know, I do it, and JL immediately says, "Oh man, this is great. Let's do it again next Monday." I'm like, oh. So now I gotta do these watch-alongs, 10 of them, because there's 10 episodes. We're on episode 4. It's fun because, frankly, I have a real bad habit of recording stuff on the cable box and then never. I've got a stack of Arrow and Supergirl that I haven't caught up on, and I'm frankly very busy and happy just playing around on this DCU and reading the comics. So there's a funny story for you. But yeah, we'll be having that Monday night. It'll be 6 p.m. Pacific and 9 p.m. Eastern. It's danger close. It's going to be kind of a crazy one. And we were also going to talk a little bit, but I think we're running out of time, frankly. But the
Yeah.
episode 3, which you now, New 52. Are you watching Krypton at all?
I saw the first episode, but I'm going to wait until all of them are bingeable on DCU.
Okay,
That's
and that's a good. I will tell you this: it's much better pacing this time than the first season.
Oh my
The
God.
first season, I actually stopped watching it on cable after about the 4th episode because it was just a
Me
big
too.
yawn.
I watched the first 4, and then we got to the big teaser in 4 where the voice of Rao gets bit, and then I stopped. I was like, the great cliffhanger, but it's too slow. It's like, compare that to
Yeah.
now, where it's like you feel like
Oh,
every
man.
single character gets this massive progression, even though nothing actually happens. It's baffling. It's so good though.
No, it's really good, and just all the character development, right? I mean, I don't know about you guys, but
hmm
for me, plot's fun, but give me great character development. Give me somebody growing as a person or changing for the worse, maybe, right? I really emphasizing the fact that, hey, we really do have free will, and when we make decisions, we either become better people or worse people for those decisions, whether we want to believe that or not. There is a thing called morality, and it's neat on Krypton to watch some of them descending really quick into some really awful places, dark places, and
That's
then
what I did.
others ascending.
Yeah, I enjoyed that a lot about Lyta and Nissa, where you believed you knew where they were going as characters, and they sort of like swapped roles midway through.
True. So we're already there, so let's go on to what we're watching. So DCU this month added Batman Year One, Green Lantern Emerald Knights, Justice League vs. Teen Titans, Justice League Crisis on Two Earths, Justice League Doom, Supergirl, Watchmen, and Watchmen Under the Hood. I have not watched any of them, but I don't know if any of you guys have.
And I should have been listening more carefully on what you just read of what they added. Watchmen I've seen in the past.
The big one,
and I'm
though,
not
from my
really.
understanding, is Watchmen, which everyone's
Yeah.
the Watchmen movie, which I hear is
Yeah.
actually really.
Yeah, it's good. Are you there?
I've actually seen every single movie that you listed except the Watchmen one because I've avoided it because I've never read the graphic novel.
Oh, I will say you want to read the graphic novel. By the way, Nathan, you disappeared on us. You may need to go out and come back in again. We don't hear Nathan. New 52 and I are going to take over the show now.
Donnell, take over.
It's the monsters in charge. Let's see. What can we say to start an internet riot today? Anyway, yeah, the Watchmen series, the comic book, as it was originally done. It's funny. It's classic. It's lots to think about. It's interesting how supposedly based on the old Charlton heroes like the Question and Blue Beetle and all that. And it is kind of obvious when you read it that that's really some of it. But what's neat is it's definitely, as I recall, it's Alan Moore, right? It definitely is really historic, which is crazy to say. To me, it's like it was yesterday, right? But it was written like what, 40 years ago, almost, right? Let me do the math. Let's say 30 years ago. Just it is kind of dated in some ways, you know. So it's yeah, definitely. If you can, New 52. If you can, thing is, we don't have it on DCU, do we, for you to read?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it is on there. But I will say out of those movies listed, I would recommend Green Lantern Emerald Knights for the story of Lyra. She's such a cool character.
Interesting. Cool. Yeah, and I know it's too bad that Toontonian couldn't be here. I know Toontonian is a real advocate for the animated stuff and a lot of the movies, and really digs in on that stuff. All right, well, Nathan, we do miss you. We hope you come back someday, wherever you are. Let's see, what else did he want us to go to? Oh, great. The next part of the discussion is Swamp Thing and Young Justice. I haven't watched either, so I cannot
Hello.
read that. Oh, yay, he's
Welcome
back.
back.
There
Just,
we go.
oh,
I've
in the
been
nick
trying to
of
get on
time. I
for
can hear
forever.
your
Okay.
red cape flickering in the wind. Good.
My internet cut out. Shame on me.
Well, you're just in time. We covered everything. We just need you to cover Swamp Thing and Young Justice.
Yay! So let's shift to Swamp Thing and Young Justice. For those who are behind, we'll do Young Justice first and then Swamp Thing. I'm so happy Swamp Thing is back, you guys. I can't even express my excitement.
Young Justice? Did
we
he?
lose him again. Oh no. Yeah, we're pretty sure that our fearless leader Nathan meant to say Young Justice is back.
Yeah, I'm
And it's 3
happy.
episodes at once. Have you
Yeah,
watched
a
it yet?
3-episode premiere and 3-episode finale, but 1 episode a week in between.
Oh, right. Did you get a chance to watch it yet?
I did watch the 3 episodes. Um, I think my favorite was seeing Big Barda and Granny Goodness and all of that. I don't know if you're caught up, Donnell?
Oh no, I haven't watched it yet. Nope. Looking forward. How's the animation this time around? Remember, I was complaining last time about all the still frame stuff.
It's about the
Haha,
same. It's a little better though.
am I there?
Yes.
Yes, you
Oh,
are here again, Nathan.
I'm so glad Young Justice is back. I don't know what's going on with my internet. Okay, it should be good now. But I'm so glad Young Justice is back. You were saying Barda and Granny Goodness. That
Yeah, that was
storyline.
my favorite part of the 3 episodes, I think.
It was weird having just read Tom King's Mr. Miracle to see Big Barda in her evil state. It was
Mhm.
like, what? It felt wrong, but that's not a bad
But
thing.
we do get the hint. We get the hint of her turning when
Mhm.
Superman saves her.
Yeah, I'm hoping that gets explored. What I love about Young
Well, and
Justice so much.
Nathan, don't forget in Mr. Miracle, you had number 7, where all the gals that are villains come by to be there for the birth of the baby, and they're all actually well behaved.
Oh my God. Anyone who hasn't read Mr. Miracle, please go read it. It's so good. It's maybe one of the greatest in a while.
But it's just hilarious. They all show up. Okay, we're going to kill you later, but we're here to celebrate your baby being born.
But what I love about Young Justice so much is that it's about the world as much as it's about the characters. So if you think about the 3 episodes, it's like how did the plot progress forward? You're like, well, Beast Boy got a lot of his time with Darkseid, but for the most stuff with Suicide Squad, but it's like so much happened in 3 episodes with exploring the world. And did you guys notice that random Watchmen teaser where Lex was like, but 2 watches the Watchmen? I was like, what?
Well, you
It
know
was
what's
perfect
killing me?
because it was perfect timing because of the movie coming to DC Universe in that same space.
That's such a good point. Oh my God. New 52, you're so smart.
You know what's killing me right now is last fall, we had the watch alongs on Friday nights for Young Justice. And that gave me the excuse to set aside time to watch it, right? Now I'm going to have to figure out, but thankfully my wife's working this weekend. So this will be one of those nothing's going on all weekend things where I can actually probably fit it in. But Lord help me if this had been one where she was home and wanted to go shopping.
Fortunately, they're releasing them in single episodes for the next couple of weeks because they have Swamp Thing. So, and partly because they need to extend it out because Swamp Thing is shorter. But so they're only 20-minute episodes, which should help you a lot with getting through them. But they're
But you know what I
so.
don't get? Why would they? What I don't understand is why have the two on at the same time? That's the part that I am severely puzzled over. Why not
Be-
just wait until Swamp Thing's over to start this? It was just really odd.
because my guess is people were protesting too much, and it was actually in the original plan. If you look at the year 1 plan for DCU, which has changed over time, I used to have it saved on my desktop, showing how much of a nerd I am. I don't anymore, but it was Swamp Thing was started, and then Justice League started in the middle, and then when Swamp Thing finished, Stargirl was supposed to start up, and then when Stargirl finished, or while Stargirl was going on, Harley Quinn animated series was supposed to start, if I recall. So that
And
schedule's
they've
all
got
gotten
all
moved
that
around.
flipped.
Yeah, now they've gotten some stuff flipped, but I think part of it is they're like, we don't have enough room. Because originally what was going to happen is Swamp Thing was going to end and then Stargirl was going to immediately start. So my guess is they already had it planned for the release date. And they're like, well, we can't move it that much. what we can do, because all the episodes are done, is release them one episode at a time to make sure that we keep that extended line, which
Okay, well,
honestly
let
isn't
me
a
be
horrible
Don
thing.
here for a minute for you. You two brought all this up, what you're really hinting at that I think let's just spend 2 minutes on this, even though it's not. What's going on at Comic-Con in 2 weeks? What do we think is going to happen as far as announcing new series, the fate, shall we say, of DC Universe in its current state? What do we think might be coming up?
I think on the comic side, Sandman's coming. I think Sandman, just the base Sandman, none of the tie-ins or anything. I think that's coming on the comic side, and I think the big thing is Doom Patrol needs to get renewed. I think if Doom Patrol doesn't get renewed, I think everyone will be terrified. Like, it's not a matter of if we want it; it has to get renewed.
Or some other new series that totally blows us away, right? Something that we didn't see coming, like
Legion
Inferior
of
5.
Legion of Superheroes live action.
Wouldn't that be? Yeah, I've been thinking of it, but there's no way they'd even to attempt that. What do you think, New 52? Anything you have heard rumors of or that you think might be announced in 2 weeks?
I haven't heard any rumors, and I'm honestly not sure what would be announced because DCU always throws us for a loop. But I agree with Nathan that it would benefit them to announce a Doom Patrol season 2, or else people will lose faith in the service, and you're going to start seeing people trickling away from the community and into other DC venues. Like, because we already know that Netflix is getting Sandman. We already know that Stars or whatever is getting the Alfred Pennyworth show. So people are going to start feeling a little iffy about this service if they don't renew Doom Patrol.
By the way, it's Epics or whatever.
Yes.
No, I totally agree with you. I was so
And
sad.
Watchmen's going to have a series, right? Watchmen has a series on
Oh yeah, on HBO. So what's happening is all these new DC shows are getting announced for other streaming services and premium channels. And so I think DC really needs to hit this out of the park and announce the year 2 slate. There's precedent for this because we didn't know the year 2 slate until Comic-Con, right? So the fact that everyone's flipping out that we all know what's coming up next, we didn't know what was coming up next till Comic-Con and before DC Universe was even out. This is when they announced everything. So whatever is coming year 2 has to be announced.
Yeah.
Well, Nostradamus will make the prediction that certainly DC Universe in some form will continue for many years to come. My deep suspicion, because of the ridiculous giveaway of the comic, is that it's going to be basically comic book based starting in about a year, is my suspicion, more or less. Just simply because there's no way on earth that they can be making a profit giving us all these comics that Marvel Unlimited does, plus all this other stuff. Either they're going to raise the rates, right, or it's going to be mainly is my prediction. But I hope I'm wrong. But with this Warner Media rolling out, it's a big thing, and so many other things are changing because of them with DC.
Well, if we're talking about profits, I'm gonna get super nerdy for a second. I watched this the most recent Disney Investor Conference. Tells you everything you need to know about me. It's more about Disney than about investing and money. But one thing that fascinated me about the conference was they were talking about for investors what Disney's profit's going to be on these services, and their answer was, "We're not making any profit until 2024 on both Hulu and Disney Plus." So my thought is this sounds like streaming services baffle me in that regard of because how it works is you need mass amounts of people to even make a profit. Part of Netflix's problem is they have those mass amount of people, but they have to keep getting more content or people get bored. So Netflix's problem is they have the amount of people to make a profit, but they need bigger and more expensive shows to keep people, which is then making it so they're losing money. I don't think in that sense streaming services are sustainable. But anyway, so what's probably going on with DC Universe is they don't plan to make a profit till year 3. And now it's possible that they don't ever plan on making a profit. Instead, will get merged with Warner Brothers through a package deal or something. Like when you get the $15 a month subscription, you also get DC Universe, something like that, which I wouldn't be against. But that might also happen.
We'll see. Yeah, I mean, we have no idea, of course. We'll have to see what happens. But I do think that Netflix is starving now that they no longer have Marvel for superheroes. I really wonder if Netflix didn't put a big carrot in front of Warner Media's nose to say, "You want to become a millionaire? How about bringing all your DC stuff to us, and we'll just start doing your stuff instead of Marvel." I'm just curious. We'll have to see, I guess.
Well, fortunately from the superhero perspective, Umbrella Academy was incredibly popular. So, and then we're getting Sandman. We're also getting The Witcher, the series, which is based off the book, not the video games, for those curious. But I think Netflix has enough stuff to keep going, especially with the inclusion of Sandman, which I think is sort of what they need to keep going. But like I said, it's the most expensive show they've ever done. And they're only adapting Preludes and Nocturnes and maybe another little bit, which my guess would be Dollhouse, which is not a lot, which is enough for a season for sure. And I hope they stick as true to the comics as possible. But I think Netflix
A quick
is
question
terrified.
here, as we're running out of time. New 52, have you read any of the Sandman comics?
No.
Well, that'll give you something fun to look forward to. It's a mind blower. It's very, and I'm not. In a way, it'll remind you of Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, right? It has a lot of that supernatural, occult kind of feel to it. It gets a lot into this whole idea of the subconscious and dreams, and the personification of different forces like death. Neil Gaiman is quite a clever fellow with a lot of that kind of stuff, and with small magic, he's a genius with that. Well, yeah, I would just encourage you if and when it becomes available again. So, Nathan, we got a couple seconds left. You were going to talk about Swamp Thing a little bit for the current Swamp.
Yeah, let's do it. So I was behind on Swamp Thing. I actually talked about it in episode 0, which I am removing very soon. But I've officially watched episodes 4 through 6 today. It is not super binge watchable, I'll be honest. I just want to make sure I got through it before today's talk. And I like it. It's gotten a lot better. I think episode 1 through 3 are really slow and frankly not that interesting. And they're long. They're like the 3 longest episodes so far. And as the episodes have been going on, they've been getting a little shorter, which is weird. But also, they've been getting a little more polished. And I'm growing to like the characters more, which is helping. I'm really thankful. Last episode introduced it, but the green is finally here. It's never, I don't think, ever been mentioned in a DC TV show. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's fantastic. And I think this episode about the price did a great job of where its focus was. It was about watching relationships unravel and about, without going into too heavy into spoilers, but it was about watching relationships unravel but also come together. And so you're seeing yourself sort of falling in love and liking characters a lot more. But you also have characters you're like, really? Really? And then you have Maria, who's sick right now and was off screen the entire episode, which really frustrated me because she's my favorite character.
Okay, now I've only seen the first episode, and I'm not sure I'm going to watch a lot more of it because, frankly, I'm not a fan of jump horror where you're constantly being deliberately scared. I'm an old guy. I take aspirin for mild angina. I don't need to die of a heart attack watching a show, but which is a little comical. I also just have but I did love the first episode though, and and if my wife wants to watch more, I'll watch it, of course. But I'm
It's
very
not
curious about the Phantom Stranger. You got to tell me about the Phantom Stranger.
if the Phantom Strangers who you're talking about, he shows up a little bit in episode 5 as a in a like fear/dream sequence. So I don't really know where it's gonna go. I'm trying to remember whose
So you're trying
dream
to say he
sequence it was
appears
used
in a
as.
dream sequence kind of thing, like someone's having
Yeah.
delusions and they see him?
So what it seems to me is that the Phantom Stranger, without going into too much spoilers, is tied into Abby's childhood in a in a and as a result of episode 5, which looks at people's fears. Basically, there's this thing going around, which I'm pretty sure is the rot, but I'm not 100% positive, but it's going around and it's biting people, and the people are having these dreams where they're experiencing the stuff in front of them and they're reacting to what's going on, what they see. But and what they're seeing is their biggest fears, but everyone else is like,
Right.
he's going crazy. So early on, the first introduction to this is someone has a snake, and they're like they on their arm, and they're stabbing themselves trying to get the snake off. And all the people who outside are seeing is the stabbing themselves. And then in a desperate attempt to get the snake off, he turns on the machine spinner, the like food
blender, like a
disposal. Yeah, the
blender or
food.
whatever.
No, the
Yeah,
food disposal.
you're
The food
speaking
disposal.
exactly why I'm not watching Swamp Thing. Those are the kinds
And
of
he
things
sticks
go
his
down.
hand
I can't
in
really
to
watch.
get it off, which is absolutely disgusting. But they don't show all the gore. They make it clear that that's what happens, but they don't feel the need to be over gory. It's actually less gory than Titans, and it's a little more spooky than Titans or Doom Patrol, but it's not had a jump scare except for one sort of moment. So it's actually more about just you feeling spooky the entire time rather
Oh, well,
than
that's I Gothic horror, big fan. And I am curious about Blue Devil. Do we ever see him in his outfit? Why is he called Blue
we've seen
Devil?
the outfit. We've seen the outfit. He's made
We've seen
a
him in the outfit up to his neck.
no. Well, sort of. Yes,
Well,
you're
because he
right.
was like a stunt man.
Yep. So we see the outfit because we go into a dream sequence into his past a little bit, but for the most part, the Blue Devil is mostly dealing with the idea that he's sold his soul to some devil. My guess is it's the Phantom Stranger, if I had to guess, and he's forced to stay in Marais until what he was asked to do is accomplished, and he doesn't know what it is. We don't really know what it is. We know Abby has something to do with it, but he tries to escape, and his escape Marais, and his hand catches on fire. And so it's partly about, and part of why the episode's called The Price to Pay or whatever, is because it's about like what these characters are paying for like what they're doing. And the most notable example of this is the Blue Devil, who really suffers in this episode. And you're seeing Woodrew, who's will eventually theoretically become the Floronic Man, seeing that he's paying for some of the choices he's made in small ways that'll unravel. But all these and Sunderland is losing his relationship with Abby, and so there's a lot of stuff unraveling, and so it's really fun to keep going. And it's not. Let me rephrase. It's not fun, but it's very well written, and it's encapsulating.
It sounds entertaining. It sounds like it's engaging your mind for you. And
So I'm enjoying it. I can't, but it felt like it got better. Like I stopped at episode 3 and then kept going because the episodes got shorter. They got a little more bingeable, a little bit. And they started to be where I wanted the series to go rather than setting up the series. I think the setup was a little long. But for example, the introduction of the green, like the official first time it mentioned the green, I was jumping in the air. I was so happy. No, I'm jumping in the air because I'm standing up, folding clothes and trying on clothes to clean my room while watching it. Or because I don't want to get too scared, so I make sure I'm grounded in reality while doing it. So I
Hey,
watch it while
listen,
making
I think it's time,
coffee.
by the
Or
way,
yeah.
we probably should consider wrapping up at this point. I think we're at the 45-minute mark.
Mhm.
But I guess we should, if you don't mind, Nathan, we'll just have people say any final thoughts. New 52, is there anything we didn't cover that you were hoping we would tonight?
No,
Gods and
you
Monsters.
covered everything.
Do you want to talk about your read along thing that you tried to do?
Oh, well, right now for this month, I am reading the digital first comics, Justice League Gods and Monsters. They're really short since they were digital first. And I'm planning on maybe, this isn't set in stone, but having a read along where we are going to listen to the comic while we read it at the same time, kind of like a watch along. But I'm not really sure on the specifics yet.
Love the
Awesome.
idea. And what I'd love to see is figure out, like I think you said, some of the platforms, there's no way to set the panel speed. But if we can figure out what that speed is, then the ones we can set it right, they could all be identical.
Yeah, or I was thinking of maybe just like narrating the dialogue and maybe having like a a sound cue, like a beep or something, to let people know to turn the page.
I've run into that somewhere. I'm trying to think what I've seen in the past that does that. You're right. That's another way to do it.
I do also think if you keep going, like people are smart enough to know to turn the page. Because if they're actually reading along, they'll know to turn the page. So like, oh, end of bubble, next bubble, you know? So,
Unless you're doing panel by panel. That's the
Yeah.
thing I think that's challenging. I would love to see this because they are movies. That's what I was telling you there on the thread. If we could do this panel by panel, have it exactly timed, you could be. Oh, the problem is, if you're going to read, you need those panels fairly slow.
hmm
mhm. But I think but if you read panel by panel New 52, then that might work. And then people can just keep going panel by panel as they go.
Oh,
Or if they're,
manually
yeah,
have a sound for each panel,
hmm
right?
yeah, instead of worrying about that and trying to make it perfect.
Well, the hard part
Just make it
about
a
panel by
pleasant
panel.
tone.
Oh yeah, the hard part about panel by panel is that on the iPhone, it only gives you 10 seconds. So if you have like 4 word bubbles in there and they're longish, you don't really have time for that.
Oh,
Wait,
so the
so
iPhone doesn't allow you to do manual panel by panel?
Oh, yeah, manually, yeah, but I thought Nathan was speaking about timing it.
no, I was
Well,
saying
we
you could,
were, but we're thinking if you do manual panel by panel, you can just have a little tone that tells us to go to the next panel.
or
Um,
people are just smart enough to know to turn the panel, you know? Because if you're actually reading along, you know, oh, panel's over, next one.
but if you've also noticed on watch-alongs, people have questions on just how to play watch-alongs, which are fairly like straightforward. I don't want to confuse
Yeah.
people if they're doing the read along.
You know, it would be really
True.
fun. And again, we were probably taking too much time on this, but as far as the timing of the podcast, but wouldn't it be cool if you could do a screen? There's a way to get software that records your screen. Thing is, I think DC you might get flipped out if we did this, where you recorded it for a YouTube video and have everybody watch the YouTube video.
Oh yeah, you'd
Uh,
have to find some way to do it where it's private. That would probably be how I do it.
well, you can
Is you
make it
make it
private.
private, yeah, you make it private, and then people
And
click
then
on the
share it.
link, and then you can't, and make sure you can't share it, and then once the link's been clicked on, once the read along's over, you delete the video. And I would make sure to talk to Applejack about that.
Yeah, just talk to Applejack, see if she's okay with it, because it's they do want to play up the idea of how unique this platform is with that action movie. The idea of the comic book movie happening.
So the last thing I want to talk about, real quick, is I didn't get to give the series justice, which it deserves. The preludes to the weddings are phenomenal. So going back to comics that have just come out, the entire prelude to the wedding series is out now, which is really great, and they're all really well written somehow. Like it sounds like a cash grab because it is a cash grab, right? It's trying to build up hype to Batman's wedding number 50, which comes out next week, which is exciting for me. But the series and all the individual issues are way too well written for what they are. And what they are is just this like, we're just going to throw 2 characters together and claim it's about the wedding. It's not really about the wedding. They just try to fake tie in. But what works about it so much is it's not about the wedding. It's about the characters and their interaction, and they're very smartly paired. For example, the Riddler and Batgirl are together, and Batgirl is incredibly smart. And the entire thing is the Riddler has exactly figured out the exact time that Barbara Gordon's going to figure stuff out. And so he has this tape playing, and as Barbara Gordon's trying to save all these people and solving the riddles he's giving to save the people, he just has this one tape going. And you get to the end, and of course, Batgirl wins. But it's very fun in that it's like this chase. It's like this chase sequence, and it's like the adventure of solving the riddle. And it's very hard to solve the riddle yourself because it's about the geography of Burnside, but it's really fun. Now, does it make any sense in regards to the wedding? No, it does not. There's no real evidence that it connects to the wedding, but it's really fun. Another one that's really great, the first one actually, is Damian Wayne versus Ra's al Ghul. And this one's really fun because it's not really about Ra's al Ghul versus Damien. It is technically. It's more about Damian's worries about the wedding. Like Damian, because Batman's the father. So Damian says at one point, "I suppose you want me to call you mother," to Catwoman, and she's taken aback by it. But it's like it's about the characters, and all of these 5 stories are actually are really well done, including the Joker Harley Quinn one, which might be the best of them all. And then that, of course, leads into Best Man, which leads into the wedding. So the series is really great. I would check it out. And it sounds like a cash grab because it
Well,
is a
you
cash
just sold
grab.
me on them. You just sold me on them because I was only going to read the Batgirl Riddler one, but now I want to read all of them.
And you want to make sure to read them in order. Fortunately, DCU, great. One of my favorite features is you just click Preludes to the Wedding, and you can read them in order. With Marvel Unlimited, you have to look up the order yourself and then find each one individually, which would be a pain in the butt. It could be Batman Prelude to the Wedding and look for Ra's al Ghul. But they're all really good. I think comicbook.com gave them all 5 out of 5s, which is ridiculous because it is a cash grab, but it's incredible. So that's all I think we have to talk about this week. Of course, there's always more you can talk about, but sometimes you got to talk about what it is. So next week, well.
Oh no, Nathan just disappeared again.
Okay, if
Oh,
you
you're
like
there?
the series.
Oh, you're fading out again, Nathan. Maybe go out and come back in, maybe. Yes, this is Nathan.Payson, and I'd just like to say.
Okay, we good? We good? Okay. So if you like this podcast, and I'm sorry about all the tech issues, I have no idea what's happening there. But if you like the podcast and want to see more, please leave us a review. And also stay tuned for next week where we're going to talk about the wedding, more Swamp Thing, and then the conclusion of Young Justice. And maybe we'll just do a giant dive into Krypton. You have to wait and see. Also, does Doom Patrol have any chance at the Emmys? That and more next time.
Wow.
Bye.
Yay.
Bye.
Thank you.